So as we get a little further into the KORG NuTube, and especially in its application toward RF circuits and trying to get it to regenerate, brings up the subject of regens and different types of tubes. And this is people are always asking things like, hey, what's the best tube you should use when you're building a regenerative receiver? It's a fair question. And the best answer is, what do you have on hand? Do you happen to have some 12AU7s or maybe 6BA6s lying around? Whatever tube you've got on hand is the right answer to that. This is certainly going to be a very challenging job to get the KORG NuTube to work at RF frequencies. So maybe we should explore a little bit before we get into this in the next video. Just a little side investigation into what tubes work better in regens, and I'm just going to pick on that same Twinplex receiver that we've been using. I like that Twinplex with the 12AU7 socket because there's a whole multitude of different dual triodes that I can try in that particular chassis.
I would ask him questions, and of course he would always have a right answer. And I had developed an Excel spreadsheet up there, and have a little QSO with him and do some catching up. Apparently he's running a happy life, so good for him.
So this is the Twinplex on 75 meter AM. So in the introduction video I mentioned that I substituted a 12AU7 for the original 6SN7 in the AA8 Victor Twinplex. And an example of that are all of the different tubes that can be plugged into the 12AU7 socket. Look at this nice collection of tubes that I've got. In June, they started auctioning off. This is a 5814, for instance. A 5814 is a type of 12AU7. There's probably 25 different tubes with the same pinout as the 12AU7 that can be substituted. So it gives a little more flexibility. So I just realized that some of you might actually want to build a Twinplex, and you might be wondering why I chose to use a 12AU7. Well, initially I used a 12AU7 because AA8V in his Twinplex, he used a 6SN7, and I wanted to use an equivalent tube. I have different plug-in coils already made up for regens. This is a broadcast band plug-in, if I can get it out of the socket. As you can see, it's a typical wind where you need to put a few more turns on than you can fit on the form, so I've got a few overlapping turns up top. But essentially, with 100 turns, you put about 20 turns, and most tubes will feed back with something like that on the broadcast band. Once you get into the shortwave region, of course, you have to reduce the number of turns, but it's a similar kind of, 20% type rule with these Armstrong type of rigs. Now, if you have a tube that has especially low mu, low gain, you have to increase the number of turns on the tickler coil. And of course, everybody knows about if you have the leads reversed on the tickler coil, it becomes negative feedback, and of course it doesn't oscillate at all. So don't forget to swap those leads. So going through this experiment by trying a whole bunch of different tubes in the set should open your eyes to the fact that you're going to get varying performance, and that means why nobody can guarantee that a regen is going to work perfectly first time. There is some variation in tube gain and tube capacitance even within the same type. So with this 9-pin miniature type dual triode, I've got so many different tubes I can try in the circuit. I can try 12AU7 types, industrial equivalents, military equivalents, 12AX7 types. I can try the A types of the tubes. I can try 12AT7 types, and it gives you a good feel for what these tubes will act like in the set. So we're going to start with the 12AU7, the original tube in the set, and we're going to set it up so that the controls are halfway on the front. So this is the original 12AU7A by Sylvania.
So let's drop the puck. Start your engines.
Goes into regeneration just about at 12 o'clock. And we got it set up at 12 o'clock on the volume. This is going to be our standard setup. The regen controls about 20%. Got a nice strong station. So this is what we're going to compare all the other tubes to. Wow, here's a Hickok 12AU7, and it's better. It's a better tube than I had before. It's going into regeneration earlier. Of course, that has positive and negative effects. First of all, it means because you're going into regeneration earlier, you have less voltage on the plate, therefore less detected audio. So we're trying to balance high audio gain, detected gain, against regeneration. So you might argue this is a worse tube than the original. Okay, so this is a good old General Electric.
There's a good number to have, there's a safe number to have, and even if you wanted to pad that a little bit, that's one thing.
Okay, let's try some exotics now. Here's a 5814. That's an industrial version of the 12AU7. Let's stick that in. I'm sure some of you have those in the junk box.
And you toss it in the drawer, you got it in the back of your mind, but you're done with it, right?
Yes.
Well, there could be some opportunities because it's changed so much to, depending on a few.
So it's a 12AU7. Okay, here's a 5814A.
What you're paying and what the death benefits are, because if that policy can be replaced.
This one is acting like our original tube. Okay, this is a 5751. A 5751 is like a 12AX7. It's a little bit lower gain, and these are typically used in the preamp stages of amplifiers. Especially useful if you've got a amplifier that's a little squirrely, maybe a little microphonic or oscillating. You can stick one of these in the 12AX7 spot, and sometimes you can get back to stability, as they say. Let's see what this thing does.
Where you actually had a 401k.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I agree with your point.
Lower output, and you need more regeneration. It's not working as well as the 12AU7. Here's a 5963. That's a 12AU7 type. Stick that in and see what happens. See what I mean about this socket accepting a lot of different types of tubes?
If you have a bunch of scrap, there's a good chance that look at all the money in those accounts, and you're invested in.
This one seems to go into regeneration the lowest so far.
Potentially invested in the same thing.
Okay, a straight 12AX7. Looks like an RCA. No, it's a General Electric. Okay, 12AX7 is heating up. Sounds scratchy. Well, the regeneration is about 80%, and audio is not okay. A 5751. That's another one of those 12AX7s that has a little lower gain. Let's see what that does. It's pretty dirty, I bet.
There's some simple things that you can go through and work with on an advisor. You can mention these things, or they should be mentioning it.
Hey, I like it a little better than the straight 12AX7. Okay, here's a Telefunken 12AX7. Let's try the Telefunken. Let's see what the Germans can do.
Another way to break the ice as well. So again, Bistro 603 on September the 14th and September the 16th. 888-301 plan is all of that really. If you have a game plan, or just come to the event, or both, you call 888.
That's about like the first 12AX7. Okay, Weber. Web core. Made in Great Britain. Wow. Got a lot of dogs in this battle. Let's see what happens here. Again, this may seem exhaustive, but I just wanted to try some different tubes that would fit into the socket just to see what the effects are.
Finally, an advisor should put that plan together for you. Number 3, complimentary. At no cost, no obligation to you. It should be a fact-finding mission, not a sales pitch out of the gate.
It's acting like the other 12AX. This is a 6681 industrial tube.
With Coach Skip Kelly, so we can help you prepare for a rock.
Wow, this one I guess has seen some industrial use. This is the worst 12AX7 type so far. Okay, a 12AV7. Now that looks to me like it's going to be a 12AT7 type. So let's see what happens here. 12AV7.
Or Laconia. You can also use that same number to let them know if you'd like to attend the upcoming on September the 14th or September the 16th at Bistro 603. And where's that restaurant again, Renee?
Boy, I like it.
It's in Nashua.
There you go. So
I like the
you know, check that one out. This is a
12AV7.
new place for you guys.
A 12AZ7 Alpha. 12AZ7A. No idea what that is.
Talk with Team Save Money Retirement Strategies. All right, Renee. So we're going to get into this empty nest. You know, we talk, and you and I talk offline, and I pick on you a little bit sometimes for your short.
Okay, something kind of in the middle.
Right.
Great.
Okay, Japan's in the game with a 12AT7. Let's see what happens here. 12AT7's Japanese, late model.
I would suppose. Yeah. I realize that, you know, if I were to go out there, I would still come back, even if I were to maintain that height difference, it would still be below average.
It's working okay. You might remember that the 12AT7 was the tube used in the Night Space Spanner, the Night Space Spanner Regen. Okay, here's a 12AT7 ECC81 by Mullard. So this is an English tube and beat up, kind of dirty. Let's see what a dirty Englishman can do.
Expenses. Let's start there as a, you know, just a kind of conversation. What sort of guidance that you guys go through and talk about when it comes to handling?
For most people, this isn't something that you want to get blindsided by. You know that your kids are going to go to college. They're
I think we have a winner here.
They're going through the application process.
This Mullard 12AT7 is really working beautifully. Okay, this is a National Union 12AT7.
And then realize the money, and then say, okay, are there some cheaper options? What are some secondary options? And then let's be honest too, maybe it's not even college, because as
I have to say these 12AT7s
it's gotten out of control
are really kicking butt.
It's so few.
So here's a different tube. It's a 12BH7. And to talk about using a whole different idea, the 12BH7 is a little bit larger tube than the 12AU7, and it's working very nicely in the Twinplex. Okay, here's our Mullard 12AT7 at 3.3 megahertz. Now I can say that I don't think we're going to get very far with this because the regen control is pretty far up.
15 hours,
So
32 minutes.
12AT7 is a pretty hot tube, and it's having trouble. So the particular coils that I've wound probably are a little bit light in the Twinplex circuit, and that has to do with the 100K resistor that we have here. The 100K resistor is limiting the amount of voltage on the plate with 60 volts. Now if we put the original 90 volts on there, I think things would straighten out. Or if we reduce the value of that 100K to something like 33K, it might straighten it out. But it's looking like my coil set is the problem here, along with the reduction in voltage. So if I put a 12AU7 in here, I'd be surprised if it works at all. Let's try it. 12AU7, here's one. Stick this in. So this is a 12AU7 that we're going to try to use at 3.3 megahertz with this existing plug-in coil. Now of course you need to back off on your trimmer if you're not getting oscillation, but the problem is if you back off too much you won't get any signal. So I'm leaving the trimmer set to, you know, probably about 15 puff, dribbling some antenna into the front end. We're not getting there. Okay, that 12AU7 is not getting there. Let's try another one. Here's the Japanese 12AT7. It's working, but it's a little bit noisy. I can hear some hum. Here's that 12AV7 we liked. You can also see how this style of regeneration, using a regeneration pot and a high value resistor, is quite inferior to using a proper throttle capacitor when you get up into the shortwave frequencies. On the broadcast band, it worked fine, but up here, I'm finding it more difficult to adjust. Okay, 12AV7 is doing a pretty good job. That Webcore 12AX7, nothing at all. Won't even go into regeneration. So we would need to add quite a few turns on the tickler coil to make a 12AX7 work in the shortwave bands. So hope this little demonstration showed you how important it is to select the correct tube for the job with these regens. It's my opinion that the 12AU7 would be a good candidate, probably up to 8 or 10 megahertz. After that, you might want to switch to the 12AT7 style that's capable of higher frequency oscillation because it has lower capacitances. So that exhaustive demonstration should have been foreshadowing, or a good warning at least, that we're probably going to have some big problems with the KORG NuTube when it comes to RF. And we know we've got some very strict guidelines on the audio section, and we're going to be working with a transformer now in the audio output. But we know that the RF characteristics of this being unknown is completely new territory. And we've seen that even a well-established regen topology like the Twinplex is very, very dependent on the tubes that you stick into it and what voltage you're running. If we were to run higher voltage, like 90 volts again, I think you'd see things straighten out a little more. We're also going to be playing with these plug-in coils, and I anticipate that we're going to have more feedback, and that means the tickler coils are going to grow on these. So I think we'll change some of the circuit values as well. I think the resistors and capacitors and maybe even the bias circuits are going to be changed pretty radically to allow the KORG to work at all. Anyway, I don't have any favorite tube for regens, but I can tell you that if you can't make a regen work with a 12AU7 or a 6C4 or a 12AT7 in these very simple triode type regens, even the 6BF6 used in the Morgan, then something else is going on. It's not the tube's fault.